Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples is a welcoming congregation freely seeking intellectual and spiritual growth, and we strive to create a larger community of peace, justice, and love. Each of us is encouraged to grow here spiritually, in fellowship with others, by joining in worship and celebration, education, reflection, and discussion. And we strive to do all this in the spirit of acceptance, love, and commitment to one another, offering mutual support in times of need. If you're here for the first time, and I know a few of you are, you're very welcome. We hope that you'll join us after the service this morning for fellowship behind these glass panels and on the patio. Today is a special day as we're celebrating our Stewardship Sunday. So I hope maybe if you're new, you might even get caught up in the excitement and pick out a pledge card. We can only hope, you know. For those of you who are longtime members or even with us just for a short time, we do urge you to pick up a pledge card and participate in today's stewardship festivities and enjoy the celebration and today's service, which is all about stewardship. I have a couple of special announcements this morning, the Stewardship Sunday being the first. This coming Wednesday, Progressive Voices Speak Out begins their 6-week program with a wonderful program. I'm looking forward to being there and introducing the whole series on Wednesday. So look in your order of service and out in the lobby for the materials about Progressive Voices. It's a really exciting and stimulating program that I'm looking forward to. Also, the 2020 Task Force, which has been sort of evident on the patio for the past month, is still looking for your feedback. If there are members of the 2020 Task Force that are here this morning, would you stand up, please? We have Roger Brown and Joanne Swank here in the sanctuary. There may be some people down in Thomas Hall who are watching via the streaming. And I think what the task force is urging us all to do is think bigger. And I hope that the service this morning will help you in coming up with some new ideas and some wider perspectives to offer to the 2020 Vision Task Force. I want to announce that next week the forum changes its starting time from 9:15 to 9 o'clock to help us accommodate for people who are moving into Thomas Hall for the streaming worship. And the rest of the program that you see on the Sunday news, I urge you to look at that this morning. Please know that there are hearing devices for those of you who may have trouble hearing. I'll try to speak closely into the microphone, as will Bill, I'm sure. And please silence any electronic devices that you might have. And we will now settle into worship with our prelude. With thankful hearts, we have come together this morning to celebrate the bounty of our lives, to bask in the warmth of this community, to share with friends the ebbs and flows of our lives, to entertain our best wishes for a better tomorrow. We join together this morning, as always, to find our center and regain our energies to resist injustice and inequality wherever they may be found. Our hearts are touched by the human need we feel around us, whether far away or within the reach of our hand. We come here together to be together because this is how we believe our lives are best lived, in questioning and conversation, in compassion and in service, in gratitude and in joy, in companionship and in love. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's sing together our opening hymn, number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. And rise as you're willing and able. Sounding good. Emma's going to come up and help us light the chalices this morning. On this Stewardship Celebration Sunday, may we light the chalice with a song in our hearts and a vision in our minds. A vision that we can be what we can be and see what we can accomplish in the world together. Please join me in the response, which is our congregational mission statement. The Unitarian Universal Congregation of Greater Naples is a welcoming congregation.
Freely seeking intellectual and spiritual growth, we strive to create a larger community
of peace, justice, and love.
There we go. Good morning. Are there any other youth or children around that can come forward? You guys good right there? Do you want to come over here and get closer? You can see fine. Good morning. Today, I brought some buckets with me to church. You're looking at me kind of strange. The reason I brought buckets is because there are a lot of possibilities of something that we can do with a bucket. It could be a hat. We could put some water in it. Should we do that? I'm going to put some water in my bucket. Let's see. Who wants to pour some water? Benno, you want to come pour the water? Buckets are pretty good at having water in them. Can you do that for me? Pour some water in there. We could carry lots of water with that, couldn't we? Another thing we could put in our buckets, let's see here. This is one that's pretty popular. I could put what in my bucket? Toys, balls, right? I can carry them. These are kind of cool, huh? Let's see, what else could I put in my bucket, do you think? Does anyone have any ideas what I might put in my bucket? I'll tell you one thing I really like putting in buckets. Plants, flowers, right? So I could plant a flower in my bucket right there. Well, no, we don't usually bring buckets to church, do we? What do you think that bucket might say about where it's been and what it's done? Been on some cool things, but it would say, I've never been to church before. We don't usually do that, do we? Or do we bring buckets to church? I think that maybe we do and we don't even realize it, because I think inside of each one of us, we have a little invisible bucket. Or maybe it's a big invisible bucket. Do you ever remember me talking about buckets and filling up buckets? Someone once said that they like to fill their bucket with Pringles, right? So you each do have a bucket. So go into that bucket that's inside you today. Is that bucket empty, or does that bucket have some stuff in it? Mine had a few things in it today, but it was a little empty. And that's why I was excited to come to church, because I knew there were a few things I could get when I came here to put in my bucket. I knew that probably today I would hear a story. Usually when we come, we hear stories, don't we? So usually when we come to church, there's some kind of a story that Tony tells, or I tell, or your teachers tell. Sometimes we could get a hug. Does anyone have a hug for me? Anyone? I bet Tony has a hug for me. So sometimes we get hugs when we come to church, don't we? And smiles. Sometimes we get new ideas. We think, oh, I thought I had the answer, but I didn't. Ooh, that's a new idea. Sometimes we get that. Sometimes we get a song. We're gonna get one right now. You can guarantee you're going to get a song when you come to church. And you also know that you will always get some music. And for some of us, we really know that we're going to get some food, right? Thanks to our wonderful hospitality crew and our snack parents and Layla, we know that we're probably going to get some food when we come to church. So those are some of the things we fill our bucket up with. Well, where do they come from, all those gifts that we get? They come from other people's buckets. So that means that today, Richard and the Browns, they came with something in their bucket to give us, some gifts. So all these people in the congregation are sharing some gifts. We like to call those, maybe you've heard this before, our talents, our time, and our treasures. So if we're going to get those gifts from other people, we might want to bring something in our bucket. Let's think about some of the things that we can bring in our buckets. Can you make that shot in there? Not the one with the water. How about this one? Thank you, that's a good job. He's a basketball player. So let's think about the things that we all can bring in our buckets each time to share. Sometimes some of us might bring a drawing to share, or a rainbow or different colors. Sometimes we might bring a question, and that's a gift too. When we have someone ask us the right question, that's a good gift. Sometimes we might actually bring an answer with us to church. Have you ever brought an answer with you to a question? Sometimes the problem is too many of us have answers and not enough questions, right? Sometimes, and I know in the 8th grade class, they bring a song every week that relates to their curriculum, don't they? Every week they're trying to find a pop song. So a lot of us bring songs to church that we share. I know they have fun with that. And hopefully, sometimes we bring treasure, right? Let's pour some treasure in that bucket. We definitely need some of that treasure to come with us in our buckets. So I want you to think about the kinds of things that come in your bucket. Is your bucket coming empty? Is it coming empty a lot of the time? What could you put in your bucket that you've never put before and bring to us? So today, when we have our picnic out here, you'll notice on our table, guess what we have out there? A lot of buckets. And inside those buckets are some gifts, some wise words that people said that are there. So when you look at that bucket, I want you to think about, what can I bring to this church? And if all of us brought some buckets that had a lot of good things in them, and we shared them, what could we do together for each other, and for our community, and for the world? So the question I leave you with for this week is, what will you do with your bucket? And now we're going to try something a little new. We have a new setup here since we're trying to leave all those green chairs for the adults. Children with stools, you can put them on either side. If you have a chair, you can stack it. And Emma is going to take our chalice that symbolizes the wisdom that we gain from the congregation, and she's going to stand right over here with it and lead us out. And we're going to head to the gazebo, where Jean Seidel is going to teach us a new song that we will all sing together next week. So thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bill McCormick. I'm a member of the stewardship team, along with Betsy DeJamis and Russ Duggan. The responsibility of the stewardship committee is to ask members to provide financial support for this UU congregation. Stewardship is the first step in our annual budgeting process. Today, I ask you to fill out your pledge card so that we can set congregational expenses according to planned pledge income for the fiscal year that starts on April 1. In a broader sense, stewardship encompasses our collective duty as a congregational family to honor our UU legacy. We do this annually by committing financial resources that enable this congregation to bring life to the 7 UU principles that are printed on the back of your order of service. And more immediately, stewardship means providing generous funding to allow us to accomplish our new mission, to create a larger community of peace, justice, and love in Southwest Florida. Our dedicated treasurer, Mike Kirko, observed that our stewardship results to date indicate that we are experiencing an epidemic of generosity. Russ, Betsy, and I hope that you will join our generosity movement and be infected with the generosity bug. Today, as a fellow member of this congregational family, I do not ask you to give till it hurts, but I do ask you to increase your pledge until it really feels good. As evidenced by the increased attendance, we all have a sense of renewed purpose with our new minister's presence and enthusiasm. This is reflected in part by increased levels of generous giving from your volunteer congregational management. Today I can report that your 7-member Board of Trustees, who are all volunteers, increased their pledge levels as a group by 16%. Our stewardship team has increased our pledge level as a group by 21%. We all have been encouraged by the higher levels of generosity set by the example set by Tony and Ann Fisher themselves. They are truly leading the way by increasing their initial $4,000 pledge for the current fiscal year by 37% for the year starting on April 1st. From the moment of Tony's acceptance of our offer of a settled ministry, he has demonstrated a personal career commitment and level of financial support to this congregation that is unprecedented. Tony chose this congregation because it offered possibilities to make the light of Unitarian Universalism shine more brightly in Southwest Florida. We who have lived in this community recognize opportunities for social justice projects which might be encompassed by the possibilities envisioned by Tony. We need to transform these possibilities into reality. We must remember on this Pledge Sunday that we Unitarians have a most serious responsibility to provide the financial resources for the shared ministry of this congregation. With our congregational family poised for a promising new chapter in our historic path in Southwest Florida, now is the time to express our generosity by increasing our pledges of support. We must neither falter nor fail in our duty to continue to move forward to implement our new mission. In view of the approaching 50th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King's peaceful march for voting rights in Selma, Alabama, I want to share a little bit of my own story during a time when UUs led the way in America for racial equality and human rights. In the early spring of 1965, I remember watching civil rights demonstrators peacefully marching down Massachusetts Avenue in Cambridge, Mass., in front of the rooming house I shared with mostly foreign graduate students. How I truly regretted not being able to join the peaceful parade for voting rights, racial equality, and social justice. I was pinned down at my desk with urgent studies for exams from which I could not escape. The marchers may well have included Reverend James Reeb, a 38-year-old UU minister, husband, and father of 3 children, working on a social justice project for the American Friends Service Committee. His program was aimed at protecting poor residents from exploitation by unscrupulous landlords in the Roxbury section of Boston. On March 7, 1965, when James heard the call from Dr. King for clergy to join him in the peaceful march to support a passage of a federal Voting Rights Act, he immediately booked a plane from Boston to arrive in Selma the next day. James Reed joined about 500 other Unitarian Universalists, including nearly 1/5 of all the UU ministers, plus lay people like 39-year-old Viola Liuzzo, a housewife and mother of 5 children from Detroit. In the course of representing the UU beliefs of equality and social justice and turning those beliefs into action, James and Viola were murdered by racist thugs and members of the Ku Klux Klan. Dr. King eulogized Reeb at a ceremony in Selma. He told the audience that James Reeb was a witness to the truth that men of different races and classes might live, eat, and work together as brothers. By putting their beliefs and their lives on the line, James Reeb and Viola Liuzzo truly embodied the highest principles of Unitarian Universalism. Because of my education, family, and career responsibilities, I had to defer my own chance to put my skills into action for the UU principles I embraced. Some 40 years after the Civil Rights March in Cambridge passed the old student rooming house, I was able to join a different type of march for social justice. I volunteered for an after-school program in Boston's UU Urban Ministry to mentor educationally underserved middle and high school students from the very same neighborhood in Roxbury served by James Reed in 1965. One of the greatest joys of my life was attending the high school graduation of one of my students who went on to complete 4 years of college. The picture of that happy outdoor ceremony under a clear blue sky on a cool evening in June filled me with hope for my student's future. But as I drove away through Boston, listening to a Red Sox game on my car radio, I also felt a great sense of sadness for all those educationally underserved inner-city students who could not benefit from a UU-sponsored after-school mentoring program. As we all know, there continues to be a great need for such UU social justice programs, especially here in Southwest Florida. I expect that some of you have also wished that you could have done more at some point in your lives, but your own fears or demands of family or career held you back. Well, at this stage of our lives, we do have the opportunity to do now what we could not do then. As Anne Frank wisely wrote in her diary, "Isn't it wonderful that nobody need wait another moment to improve the world?" By supporting our UU congregation, we can honor the UU legacy as exemplified in the lives of Viola Liozzo and James Reed. Now, our time to transform our UU principles into tangible actions to create a wider community of peace, justice, and love, and thereby to make certain that the legacy we inherited of Unitarian Universalism is nourished and passed to the next generation. On this day of generous commitment, as stewards of our UU voice in Southwest Florida, I offer you the advice of Martin Luther King. He said, "Keep feeling the need to be first. But I want you to be the first in love. I want you to be the first in moral excellence. I want you to be the first in generosity." And Anne Frank also reminds us that no one has ever become poor by giving. Perhaps our congregational motivation for our new mission is best described by something James Reed himself wrote in his application to obtain a Unitarian ministerial fellowship many years ago. He wrote, "I want to share actively in the adventure of trying to forge the spiritual ties that bind mankind together in brotherhood and peace." How lucky we are. We need not wait another moment to start to improve the world. Please seize this opportunity to join the march for UU principles, supporting generously this Unitarian Universalist congregation. I most gratefully thank you in advance for your generous support when you fill out your pledge cards today. Thank you.
In the spirit in which Bill just so ably demonstrated, you have the opportunity to pledge your support of this congregation today, but you also have the opportunity, as you do each week, to show your gratitude for each other, because this church is for you. And I offer you now the opportunity to share your gifts as the morning's offering will be gratefully received. can get into a reverie listening to Richard. Let's center a little bit more and sing together, sitting down, hymn number 1008. We'll sing one verse of When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. And in that place, let us take the time to share with one another our joys and our sorrows, those things that we carry in our hearts during the week and which come with us to this sanctuary every Sunday. If you have a joy or a sorrow you'd like to share, I'll bring the microphone to you. I hope you'll state your name and share briefly what's in your heart. For all these joys that have been shared, for all our visitors, we give thanks. For all those joys and sorrows that remain unspoken, let us hold those in our hearts and minds as we deepen into meditation. Let us settle into silence. Feel your breath. Sense it slow. Let your muscles loosen. Open your heart and allow the warmth and compassion in this room to flow freely through your veins. Spirit of life and love, if there is something to learn from our time together, it is simply this: we are not alone. And if we live this life and do whatever we need to do, if we welcome everyone, friend and stranger, in this true spirit of generosity, aware of what truly is and what truly can be, life will in turn welcome us with its full promise. Let the silence continue as we keep our hearts and minds tuned to the possibilities that await. I was a church rat growing up. Not only was my family deeply involved at First Parish in Lexington, Massachusetts, but my best friend, Paul Kulpit's father was the part-time sexton, and his mom was the administrator of the Sunday school. Having hidden in every conceivable corner of that old New England church during games of hide and seek, I knew every dusty nook and cranny. My first sex education course took place in front of a big old fireplace above which Theodore Parker's portrait hung. More than likely, Theodore would have been very pleased at what was transpiring within the congregation he knew as a boy. It was in that church that I was inspired to think about ministry. It was there that I stopped taking community for granted and started to understand the importance of human connection and the power of people working together. After my parents sold the home I lived in for the first 19 years of my life and were off taking a year's sabbatical so my dad could write, I remember sitting alone in the sanctuary of that church and saying out loud that this was where I felt most at home now. And that statement echoed in my mind 16 years later when Ann and I were leaving that congregation to buy a house of our own and start a family in nearby Reading. Of course, we then spent the next 27 years being RE parents and active lay leaders at the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Reading. I know New England churches. It was the vision of ministering to a congregation just like the one where I grew up that sat in the back of my mind for 42 years. When I finally made the decision to pursue this career and had reached the point where I needed to find a congregation to take me on as intern, I was quite comfortable choosing First Parish in Concord, just 6.5 miles from my own home church in Lexington. When it was time to enter the search process and identify the congregations where I would think about serving, 11 out of the 13 churches were in New England, and one of the 2 remaining was just outside New England. And throughout much of the search cycle, my first choice was a congregation less than 30 miles, as the crow flies, from our home in Reading. I'm not even sure what made me check the box on the UUA website that indicated that I would be willing to exchange information with a congregation in Southwest Florida. Florida? Really? It was a simple computer click that ultimately sent Ann and me spinning wildly off the prescribed course and landing us here in Naples. And it was you that won the day. You, at least as represented by your search committee through their own experience here, through the surveys you filled out, and the many conversations you had. What I saw in the materials they provided and what I heard in their voices, what emerged from all this communication was that there was a sense of energy and a possibility of growth. And that went 2 ways. It first manifested itself internally. As I weighed the opportunities, it was this congregation that kept bubbling up unexpectedly in my imagination. And it took some time for me to understand that while there was a tremendous level of comfort in looking at churches in New England, my heart and my mind were calling me to a place where I could continue to be challenged, where I would have to stretch and grow, where I would have to provide leadership in the context of unfamiliar political and social realities. And beyond the internal response, there was the feeling that things were happening here. I saw movement. The first exposure ministers have to a congregation is a document called the Congregational Record. It's a narrative response to general questions provided by the Department of Ministry at the Unitarian Universalist Association. It's the first public document that churches need to provide in the search process. Between the time I read that document in early December In the end of the search cycle, at the end of March last year, there were 3 significant shifts here, and they were occurring during a time of transition when congregations are usually holding their own or losing momentum. The first was growth in the number of children enrolled in the religious education program. Stunning, especially here in Southwest Florida. The second was a newly energized social justice committee, actively pursuing ways to make a difference. And the third was an entire congregation that had increased its level of giving by about 25%. What the heck was going on here? There seemed to be possibilities for the kind of growing and stretching that would match my own. You seemed to be poised for something more. You seemed to have an energy that I didn't see anywhere else. You seemed to be ready to look to a new future. And you haven't disappointed. As I reviewed the many ideas that you've brought to the 2020 Vision Task Force over the last month, I became even more enthused by the possibilities. You are envisioning a bold and exciting center for intellectual and spiritual growth, a place that offers a strong adult learning program where there are multiple opportunities and groups, small and large, through set curriculum and locally created modules to gain a deeper understanding of our roots and discover new insights that will enhance our personal journeys and give us the tools we need to engage a diverse world. A place where the forum and progressive voices continue to offer stimulating topics that bring curious and thoughtful people, liberal and conservative, through our doors. A place where the visual arts are celebrated and understood as having an important role in our intellectual and spiritual growth. A place for meditation groups and alternative kinds of worship. A place where there's a growing and diverse music program for all ages that builds on the excellent foundation we enjoy today. A place for energized discussion, from sermon talkbacks to the Beyond Sunday programs that engage an ever-widening audience. A place where there's deeper connection between the generations and opportunities where we can learn and grow and change together. And you're also ready to move out beyond these walls, building new bridges and expanding a community of peace, justice, and love. You see us engaging in interfaith work and connecting with local agencies to address problems that exist on our doorstep. You see us connecting with and listening to people who are different from us so that we can move beyond our fears and begin to work together. You see us taking service learning trips, youth groups, adult groups, and mixed, farther afield to understand the world from a wider perspective, broadening our understanding, deepening our compassion, and motivating our efforts for local change. You've mentioned starting programs for women, and you suggested leveraging our individual talents and skills in one-on-one mentoring programs. You've encouraged the development of a food bank, even growing some of our own produce to contribute to the cause. And you've seen the need to live our values and become better stewards of the earth by shrinking our carbon footprint through the use of alternative energy, modeling that right here first at UUCGN. You've recognized that you've recognized that building and sustaining a living institution like this involves making our congregation more visible, more accessible, and more diverse, with programs that support people across all the ages. You understand that we need to utilize technology more and to connect and communicate, that we need to create more volunteer opportunities so people can match their passions with the community's needs. You see the need for us to take better care of each other. You see clearly that we need to build a system that encourages people to move into leadership roles, and that we will eventually need to increase staff to help coordinate many of these efforts. You see the need for our physical plant to change in order to hold the hopes and dreams that we choose to pursue together, from a more efficient use of what we have to modifications that will enhance our vision, to additions such as solar panels that will allow us to live up to our seventh principle, which sees all creation as an interdependent web. Let me share with you some parts of a fully formed vision that Carl Erickson wrote and sent to the 2020 Task Force. In 2020, I see a physical building busting with activity through the week. As I walk through the grounds with a smile on my face and peace in my heart, I see all sorts of new faces, fully mixed into all the faces of the community I have come to love and need. A food bank is open and well-stocked, and there's regular movement of people in need moving through its doors with dignity. No questions are asked of them, no forms are filled out, no prying into their personal circumstances is taking place. They have come, they have been welcomed, they have taken what they need, and they are heading home with several bags of healthy sustenance that will ease their anxiety, nurture their children, and help stabilize their lives. A sculpture garden with stunning provocative works lines the west side of our parking lot and says to the thousands of travelers on I-75, here is a body politic, a community, a voice of freedom and reason that will not be intimidated by a larger culture of conformance. Our minister is still here after 6 fabulous years of growth and is meeting with his assistant minister and our long-standing DRE, Heather, to conceptualize an exciting and potentially culture-changing social action program. They are conceptualizing, not planning, for they know they will be eagerly supported by the community they lead, and that there are any number of capable lay leaders that will actually form and lead the committee to undertake these actions. We now have a sizable endowment with substantial pledging, more than covering our operational expenses. The surplus pledging adding to the income from the endowment have allowed us to enter a far more mature phase of budgeting that we used to engage in. We now budget sustaining gifts to a number of worthwhile organizations and have a committee that further distributes one-time gifts to specific events as we see fit. Even with all these changes, Carl writes, and all these new programs and all these new faces, the treasure of our senior members, especially those that have been the foundation of our congregation for so many years, can still remember meeting in the domes without air conditioning, still attending services here and enjoying the programs and feeling wanted, needed, and pivotedly included. What a wonderful vision Carl writes about. And together over the next 2 months, we will create a vision together that sounds in some ways similar to that, and it will be many ways different and broader. But my guess it will have the same mixture of creativity, respect, and optimism, a vision that will inspire this community to live into its future as a beacon of hope for progressive thought in Southwest Florida. What I want you to see, what I want you to feel today, is a sense that if you give freely to this congregation, the dollars that you give will make a difference. Bill talked about giving until it feels good. Last November, I talked about generosity and how important that is to our own well-being as well as to the well-being of others. The dollars that you give freely to this congregation will come back to you immediately in the form of enhanced experience here and in the form of greater possibility for change in this community. We can always be grateful that there are individuals in this world who have the desire and the wherewithal to make significant contributions to the welfare of society. For the rest of us, however, I believe that it is in and through community that we can have the greatest impact on change. First, in changing and growing ourselves in a safe environment, and then in recognizing our responsibilities and taking action in the wider world. It was movement that caught my attention last spring when I was looking at churches. Movement that spoke to me of possibilities. And now I feel it every Sunday in the energy that permeates this building. And what it lacks is only clear direction, and we'll be working on that together over the next month or so. And it requires funding to turn those dreams into reality. 2 weeks ago, Russ Duggan reported that your past generous pledge support has enabled our congregation to continue to build a robust religious education department, teaching UU principles of equality, social justice, and cultivating open-mindedness, just like Miggy. Last week, Betsy DeJamis reminded us that thanks to your financial commitment in the current fiscal year, we are moving into a new era of generosity so that we might be able to expand programs beyond what was possible before. And today, Bill McCormick spoke from his own experience, urging you to seize the moment and begin to make change. My request of all of you today is simply to fund the possibilities. They are so great. There is such wonderful energy here. And I urge you to think about moving up as your budget allows, not just incrementally, but to the next level of giving, and make this the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples the place of your dreams. May it be so. We get to sing my favorite hymn because I get to choose. Number 1000. We sang it twice here, so I hope you'll remember it. Richard, let's go. Please rise as you're willing and able. Morning has come, arise and greet the day. Dance with joy and sing a song of gladness. The light of hope here shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home. A new day dawns, once more the gift is given. Wonder fills this moment shared together. The light of peace here shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home. Open our eyes to see that life abounds. Open hearts to welcome it among us. The light of love here shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home. Our closing words come from March Piercy. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, who are not parlor generals or field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come in or the fire be put out. The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn are put in museums, but they know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries out to carry water, and a person for work that is real. Please be seated for the postlude. Go out into the world in peace, have courage, hold on to what is good, return to no person evil for evil, strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, help the suffering, honor all beings. And now, please listen to Bill McCormick as he has one final announcement for you.
You're not through with me. By a fortuitous set of circumstances, our caterer is a little bit delayed in bringing the main course. But listen, you know, I always like to have dessert first because you never know, like in the Titanic when they said, damn it, I wish I had eaten dessert first. So what we're going to do is we're going to have some cookies and coffee. It will give you an opportunity to get your digestive system started. And also, you can fill out your pledge card. And you can't get to the main course until you put it in a basket back there. Sorry, that's just the way it happened. But anyway, I hope you'll be patient. They are on their way, and it will be a great lunch. And also, after you fill the pledge card out and you're waiting around, if you have to, you can always tour our garden and look at the pineapples because, let's see, it's February. In a couple of months, those pineapple plants we got from Mish Batty and Roy Batty will bloom, and they become the most magnificent, it's a flowering fireworks. So just keep your eye on those. So there you go. That's a little change in the circumstances. So bear with us. Bye-bye.